Chanel versus Charlotte Tilbury. Look at me with my mouth smothered in lip gloss. I've got lip gloss like up to here. Hey y'all. Okay, I'm finally doing it. I'm going to be reviewing the Chanel Le Beige Fluid Illuminator and the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter by way of comparing them to each other. And it's taken me so long to manage to get it together to do this video for reasons that I actually think are kind of like inherent to the review itself. And so all of that is going to unfold as part of the review. Because I think I'm gonna kind of do it story time-ish. I'm gonna tell you like the saga of me trying to figure out whether these are the same or different, and if they're different, what are the differences and which one's even better, and like why it took so long to do that. If this is your first time to my channel, then welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Hannah. I love beautiful things. I enjoy beauty. And sometimes I review products, like new products, kind of like I'm doing today. This isn't new, but it's like an iconic beauty product. And this isn't that new either. I'm like not quick on the uptake over here on my channel. But you know, these questions of like, is this similar to this on the makeup market? Sometimes I do that stuff. I also really enjoy using what I have and, you know, trying not to buy too much stuff and trying not to spend too much money. So if balanced content like that sounds good to you, I hope you'll subscribe. Let's go ahead and get right into the meat of this mysterious video. This top, I know, I know. I'll be covering it when I talk about how I spent my little seasonal budget because it is something that I recently acquired. I saw Mariah Leonard wearing it like 2 years ago. I recently checked the resale market for it and I found it and I bought it. I was influenced. Thanks, Mariah. I've mentioned this before, I think, briefly in a video, but I purchased these specifically for review, but I didn't have to use my channel review budget. I bought them with a Nordstrom gift card that was sent to me by Nordstrom because of my YouTube channel during their anniversary sale, which was like, you know, 150 years ago at this point. It was like a long time ago. I think that their idea was that they would give me the gift card so that I would like buy stuff during the anniversary sale and then tell you guys to buy stuff during the anniversary sale. But you know that I'm not really about the way that the frenzy over sales drives consumption, like drives you to buy things that you might not otherwise buy and often to spend an amount of money that you might not otherwise have spent. So it didn't really feel right to me to be like, Nordstrom anniversary sales on, you guys. OMG, like get it while it's hot. And that wasn't a stipulation of the gift either. They just, you know, gave me the stuff to buy stuff from Nordstrom's, hoping that the stuff would eventually show up on my channel, and it is. So here it is, like 380 years later, talking about the things that I bought from Nordstrom's with the gift certificate that they gave me during the anniversary sale. I purchased these two products, neither of which I think I would have purchased myself with my money. This one I've wanted for a really long time, the Hollywood Flawless Filter. It's one of those things that's perpetually on my wish list, or was, but I never spent my own money on it. And I think that that would have just continued on ad infinitum. And you know, if I wouldn't have bought this with my own money, I definitely wouldn't have bought the Chanel one with my own money. I feel like it's more of an unknown, you know, and I've never really owned Chanel makeup before, so I didn't really know what to expect from it, but I did like the idea. I think around that time this was pretty new, like it had just come out, and I did like the idea of not only getting the chance finally to review this, but comparing the two of them, pitting them against one another. Pew, 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 meow. So I used the gift card, I made the purchase, the things arrived, and then they sat there for like a long time. And I kind of struggled to imagine how I would incorporate them. I mean, when they first arrived, I opened them and swatched them. And here I will go ahead and tell you about some of the main differences. So I got the Hollywood Flawless Filter in shade 1, which is the fairest shade. The delivery mechanism is very different, right? It's this big doe foot applicator, and it's really a thick product. It's like thicker than many concealers. Like it's thick, THICC. It's a thick cream, you know what I mean? And the Le Beige is in like a bottle that you shake up. You can even hear it. Hear it? This would never, Hollywood Flawless Filter would never, like you can't, probably nothing's moving when I shake it. It's more liquidy, and it has a pump bottle like this, which I have to say right out of the gate, I prefer. I prefer a pump like this because I don't know, it's less fussy, right? It's like you pull off the cap and in one swipe of your finger, one pumping swipe, in one motion of your finger, you've dispersed the product wherever you are putting it. And with this, you take it, and I guess also with one motion, you've dispersed the product. I don't know why I prefer a pump. Also, in theory, this is more hands-free. It just feels fussy to me. I don't know, it's like pulling the wand out and all of a sudden you put the wand back in. I don't know, maybe it's putting the wand back in that feels like an extra step. I like a pump. I've always been like that. I like pumps with skincare. I like things that are in a pump. It just feels more convenient to me. The other huge difference right off the gate is that Flawless Filter in the lightest shade is darker than Les Beige. And the Les Beige, it doesn't come in as wide an array of colors. The Flawlywood Flawless Filter comes in, something like 8 or 10 colors, goes from light to dark. And this just comes in 2 colors, and it's much sheerer. So I think the idea is that because it's sheer, it's supposed to be able to cover like the entire one half of the spectrum of shades in the light and then the other half in the dark. Hopefully that's the idea, but whatever the case is, it's just much more sheer. I'm gonna do thick swatches. I did film some B-roll footage, which I'll be interspersing of me in my robe this morning. And so you'll be able to see other swatches, but I didn't do a close-up swatch of them side by side, like when they're not blended out, so that you can see the difference in the shades. So the one that's sort of dripping down my hand, the underneath one, that's the Chanel. And you can see that it's just brighter and whiter. The one on top is Flawless Filter. It's just kind of like a dark yellow by comparison. And I think that the reason that there are more shades, like the reason there's an array, is that it kind of has pigment. Like it has a little bit of coverage. And given that that's the case, I wish that they had a lighter shade, because this isn't as light as my concealers. It's technically too dark for me. Now it does sheer out, and then I'm like layering stuff on top of it. You can sheer it out, but to me, that's a huge strike against it. It's like the shade range. They're clearly trying to bill it as something that you can kind of use to provide some coverage to your complexion, but there's not a match for me. So this is just the closest that I could get. Whereas the Chanel, it shears out when you blend it out, and it's just, it's like this wet look, stunning, sheer shine, and you can entirely see my skin through it. So that's a huge difference formula-wise, in theory. Spoiler alert, in theory. But I feel like it is the primary difference between the two of these. One of them is sort of masquerading as a coverage product, and then there's this like it's not like as wide a shade range as foundations have, but it's, there's a selection and you're trying to like match yourself. And the other one is like a highlighter, like a sheer highlighter. I got them in the mail, I opened them up, I observed the difference between the textures and the bottles, and I played around with them a little bit. And then I sort of struggled to imagine how I would want to incorporate them into my makeup routine. And it's because I use kind of a glowy primer. And I feel the VDL Lumi Layer Primer is my favorite primer. It's the one I usually use. And after I put it on my face is glowing like a soap bubble. So it's a weird thought to like want to go in with one of these just on my cheeks on top of that already soap bubble base. They do add more glow than my primer. They're really, really glossy and wet look. I could also mix them with cream blushes. The Flawless Filter could easily be mixed in with a cream blush to like lighten it up, because it has that pigment. But I didn't reach for them. So this is important to me as part of the review, because I dreamed of this product for so long. I think that my dream was sort of a theory. It was like this theoretical desire, because once I got it in my actual hands, and again, this has been physically on the wish list that, my family has access to, is like the one we use, like this online wish list thing. And so I didn't buy it for myself. Nobody ever gave it to me as a gift, but it was on the wish list. I'm saying I've been wanting it actively for years, can we say? I think years. I got it and I didn't use it for like 2 months. If you are wanting this, if you're out there, if you've been wanting this is like the first question you have to ask yourself. Is your desire practical or is it theoretical? do you just like the idea of having beautifully glowy skin? And this is supposed to be a glowy skin product. So you in theory want it, but really you just want the skin. But actually in practice, this actual product in this bottle with this doe foot, with this consistency, wouldn't really present itself as an ideal option for you. Is that the case? Because that kind of turned out to be the case for me, at least at the beginning. And if that's the case, just banish the thought. You don't need it. Like, you're probably already glowy with a bunch of other glowy products that you already have. There's a chance that what happened to me would happen to you, which is that you would get it and then you would just keep glowing yourself up with the other glowy products that you already have. So it was that way for a while and I was like, oh boy. And then I was like, I have to start incorporating these because I have to do this review. I want to review them. Like, I got them to review and I want to present a review. So I put them front and center on my vanity and I was like, I need to start using these. I started with this one. For some reason, this, I think it's like the slight dark, slight yellow tinge, the pasty, the thick paste of a formula. I just didn't want to use it. So I started by using this one and I used it essentially as a primer. And it's actually so nice. It's super liquidy. It's scented. The fragrance is not too repulsive. It's kind of light and clean. But you know, I wish it weren't scented like it is, but it is, but it's fine. And it's kind of pleasant in its own way. It's not my favorite thing, but it's kind of pleasant in its own way. And the gloss on it, the absolute gloss. I will show you now the footage of myself applying this to half my face, my bare face, although I did have a little bit of green color corrector on like the lower part of my face because it's very red right now and blemished, but it's pretty much bare skin. So I applied it to my hand and I applied it to my face. I'll show you the footage right now and you will see me shining like a glossy floss, like a pelt, like a star. It's just stunning. So I started using it and I like fell in love with it. And I started putting it all over my face even on days when I literally wasn't wearing any makeup. And so I would be like moving through the house, doing things, cooking, taking care of the baby, like hanging out. And I would like catch sight of myself in like the hall mirror and the bathroom mirror. And I would just literally look like someone had just sprayed me down with a hose. Like I was shining like a dewdrop in the sun, even with like my redness and my blemishes and stuff. And I didn't care. I was just like, look at me. Like, it wasn't a makeup look. And you know, my skin still looked a little troubled, but it looked so wet all the time. Like I had just finished putting on my skincare and I just loved it. So I forced myself to start using it. And then I started using this like day in and day out, no makeup days, makeup days. On makeup days, I'll like mix it with my foundation or, you know, like I'll put on not foundation because I don't really wear foundation, but I'll put on like a layer of it and then just mix in a tiny bit of my concealer, spot conceal. And so it calms down the look of the redness and blemishes on my skin, but I still look very wet, you know? And I think one of the things nice about it is that it's not really a highlighter. It's like this highlighting fluid. So I found that it didn't, sometimes if you highlight your entire face like crazy, like the Tin Man sort of, it really reveals your pores and your fine lines. And I found that this didn't do that. And so that was the thing that really surprised me. I think that had been the thing holding me back from doing it. I was like, it's so highlighting. What am I gonna do? Put it all over my face? But I didn't want to just put it on my cheeks because I have highlighters for that. You know what I mean? But once I actually took the plunge and I started using it basically as like a base product, as like a primer, a kind of skincare shiny foundation, a foundation of shine. I don't know. I really fell for it. I was like, OMG. So then in my head, I was like, well, is this going to be my review? Like I never used the Flawless filter. It was kind of too dark and it just didn't inspire me. But then I kind of fell in love with the Chanel one. And then I was like, no, I have to give the Flawless filter its due. Going into really trying to test it, I was like, I'm never gonna love about it. What I love about this was just that I literally look so wet all day. It's just, I was like, how could it possibly be that? Because it doesn't have that same kind of shine. Like when you swatch them next to each other, this one's just like a grease, like a sheen of dewy grease, you know? And this has that coverage. So it just looks a little more flat on the skin. But I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try it. So one morning, like last week, I got up and I put this all over my face. I did under here. I used it like concealer. I put it under here. I concealed my little blemishes with it and sort of tapped it in, put it on my forehead, like high points Cupid's bow. As I was putting it on, I was like, you know, it's got that sort of thickness of a concealer. It's got that pigment. I was like, it's providing me a little bit of coverage on my blemishes, but is it gonna conceal them, or is it going to like highlight the blemishes? Because it is kind of a highlighter after all. I was like, I don't know about this. And as I was doing it, I was like, and it's just gonna be a sort of disappointing dewy shine. It's not gonna be that like wet look, glassy grease of the other one. 1 second later, well, maybe like 10 seconds later, I looked in the mirror and I looked exactly like I had just put the Chanel one all over my face. I looked wet. There's something about this one. It does not apply, it does not swatch well. Maybe it's like my skin warmed it up or something, but suddenly it sort of became one with my skin and just took on this lovely, again, greasy shine. But the pigment did help conceal my blemishes, and it's not the kind of highlighting that it's not that like icy metallic highlighting that makes blemishes look more three-dimensional than they are and makes pores stand out more than they do. Both of them have this thing that they do where they kind of blur those sort of three-dimensional, those texture imperfections, but they add this wet look shine to the skin. And you could have knocked me over the feather, because I was really like, I was basically like, what the butt is all the hype about? Like, from swatching this and playing with it during makeup playtime and comparing it to this at close range, I was just like, I cannot. It just seems like this paste. It doesn't seem like it's going to give me anything that my other products don't. And then below me down, I like did it. I finally put it all over my face as part of my routine, and suddenly it's like it came alive. And this is basically the nut. This is the meat of the nut of the video. They're kind of different, like again, delivery mechanism, pigment, application, texture, the physical finish, the way they sit on the skin. This one's much, much thinner and lighter, a little bit oilier, but also dries down. And then it feels and seems more wet and looks like it's gonna be more wet look. But when I put one all over my face, cannot tell you what makes it look different from the way the other one looks. They look the same. My face looks like, I think it looks like it has the same product all over it. If anything, the Chanel one is maybe a tiny bit wetter looking, a little bit sheerer looking, but you just, when they're applied, you can't really see the pigment coverage of the Charlotte Tilbury. You can't really see, like, they just look the same. And it has been making me think about how silly it is that we're so obsessed with like the minute differences in formulas and the minute, all the swatches and like this compared to this compared to this. And it's like just a tiny bit more yellow and a tiny bit more sheer, a tiny bit more silver. The reflect is like a tiny bit blue, or the reflect is a tiny bit this. Like, it's silly and not silly. Like, it's not silly in that I also love that stuff. I have a passion for color and texture as well. Many of us do. And I also really enjoy reading reviews and watching reviews. There's something about just the like complexity and overall silliness and passion of humanity that like comes through in that kind of activity, just like parsing the minute differences between the performance of various products that you enjoy. So it's not worthless, is what I'm saying. But I think that as consumers, we can get so caught up in being obsessed with knowing exactly how a product will perform compared to another similar product, so obsessed with it that we consume and consume and consume all of this media telling us what the difference is and like what's better and what's worse. And it may be kind of indirect, but I feel like that mindset of like obsessive need to know exactly how it's going to be beforehand compared to another thing kind of like it can sort of reinforce what I think is a fallacy, which is that the makeup is going to like change the way you look completely and therefore change your life a lot. You know what I mean? Like, there's this, I think when we're chasing information about a product we think we want to buy, we get worked up because we feel like we're chasing like a new me. You know what I mean? You're chasing like a different version of yourself, an improved version of yourself, a better life. You know, just to take it all the way out to logical conclusion, we get into what I was into before my no-buy year. It was like I was trying to buy my way out of my life. By buying makeup and clothes, I was trying to buy my way into like a new body, a new personality, a new face, a new situation, a new life. I think that a lot of that lives or even like spawns in this obsessive comparison between variety, like different kinds of products. And it's a double-edged sword because I will say it's not useless or worthless. I understand like you can lovingly indulge in swatching up clothes and enjoying and comparing and like this one's a little more green and this one's a little more blue and this one's a little more creamy and this one, like I have a beauty YouTube channel. Like I love that kind of thing and I do that kind of thing on my channel. It can be done with love. It can be done with sort of joy and humor and lightness and not with obsessiveness. And then it can also, I know all too well from personal experience that it can be that kind of research, swatch research can be done with an obsessiveness that easily bleeds into the delusional belief or expectation that if you can just pick the right one between the two, like if you just get it right, then the one that you pick is going to change your life and change who you are and solve all the problems that you have with yourself and the fears that you have and the worries about yourself. And so the decision starts to feel like there's so much riding on it. And then the question of whether you might just buy neither of them and whether maybe you already are perfectly beautiful and the glowy skin products you already have are perfectly glowy enough for you and you can get enough joy out of what you already have. That question just somehow in the obsessive comparing and contrasting gets pushed off the table and you become convinced that you need one of these and you need to find out which one is the right one. So that was like a whole rant. I'm sorry if it was a little bit disorganized, but it's what I've been thinking about and like the saga for me with these, right? I really wanted one, finally got it, didn't use either of them for months, finally forced myself to start using them, fell in love with the effect of one of them and felt like the other, like it was definitely the right one, finally dragging my feet, started experimenting with the other one only to find that the end result, the effect, for all intents and purposes is exactly the same. And really in terms of the effect, they are interchangeable. They're different, but they're not. And so much makeup I think is like this. It's different and we make it out to be different. People on YouTube make it out to be different. Swatches make it out to be different. The way that the product is described on Sephora and on Nordstrom, its description, it all makes it out to be so, this is so different from this and you need this for this and this for that. And then in practice, for all intents and purposes, they're just not different. That's the case here. And it's just the case in so many cases. So, final verdict. I personally like the sheer, lighter, more fluid one better. I like that watery sheen all over the face. It's incredibly wet look and shiny, but the actual look, the way that it looks from the outside, from someone's eyes beholding you or your eyes beholding you in the mirror, the way that it actually looks does not really differ from the way that this one looks. I think, I'll show you the comparison swatches. And I think maybe someone with a really sharp eye might be able to discern that the pearls in this one are just a little bit lighter. Because it's sheer, it's got that transparent base reflect look. And this one, it's almost like you only see the reflect of this when you turn. But the reflect itself then is incredibly bright and does have that shininess of something that has a transparent base, even though it doesn't. They're just like two lovely luxury products that if you have the budget for it and you really like the idea of incorporating something like this into your routine, just pick the one that you like the idea of more. And in practice, it's gonna be the same. It's not like one's the right choice and one isn't the right choice. And I'm saying this with full confidence about these two products because I have struggled for months to figure out, like to come up with like a winner. You know what I mean? Even though this is the one I like better, it's just because it's what I like better. It's not because they look really different or perform really differently. I just happen to like it a little better. I like how it's like Chanel. And I like how it's like liquidy, but I also really mean it about like everything. I mean it about a lot of things. It's like this struggle to review these products turned out to be kind of just a touchstone tale about the act of obsessively trying to figure out which of two similar products is way, way better than the other. And maybe the takeaway is just that they're both good products and they both perform really well, but that, you might not need something like this. And I hope that you can be honest with yourself about whether or not you do. Shiny stuff is shiny stuff and it's nice. And there's no magic. There's no magical thing. I think this is really billed as like a magical product. Everybody sells it that way. It's nice. Shiny stuff on your face is nice and shining is nice, but there's just no magic. Lots of shiny stuff will make you shine. And that's the takeaway. And that is it. I hope that you enjoyed this somewhat disorganized and very off the cuff, ranty compare and contrast. And, the swatches really are what tell the tale. So I tried to do a good job of doing that swatch application footage and incorporating it into this video. Thank you so much for watching this. And if you have any questions, if I really missed something giant, put your questions in the comments and we'll try to get to those. And don't forget to take extra good care of yourself, because that's what'll make you the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.